Hey, my name's Liam James Collins. I just got off the Resilient Minds podcast with Eric Balance, and we spoke about my experience surviving London's worst and bloodiest terror attack and what I developed in terms of my mindset off the back of that. And we hand over some solid tools, some solid techniques, and it was a great conversation.
Welcome, everybody, to the Resilient Minds podcast. I'm super blessed here today to have an amazing guest, Mr. Liam Collins. You guys, this gentleman is a blessing and a blessing and a blessing. I'm so excited. I'm sitting here in Santorini where this man got married 2 years ago, and we have a special bond and a connection already just because we literally just chatted. But first of all, Liam, thank you for coming. Thanks for coming on the show.
Anytime, my man, anytime. You know what, Eric? I just appreciate the invitation and the appreciation as well. Like, I'll come onto your show whenever you want me on the show, my man. Anytime.
Dude, let's light it up. You know, I want to tell the whole audience a little bit about you because the story is a great one to tell. So you guys, 3.5 years ago, Liam was a postman. He had been known for motivation. You know, he didn't know anything about it. He had no direction, no clarity, and he had no idea where he wanted to go. So through his own powerful journey of coaching, of personal transformation, he had gone on to become an NLP trainer, international speaker, coach for celebrities, and lead peak performance coach for Amazon. Incredible. Liam has also experienced the highs and lows of his life, being defined from others from, acting, with a highlight early in his career, becoming Tom Hardy's body double in Batman, you guys. This is incredible. And being swiftly followed by a low light of his dreams of these Hollywood days were crushed. And only 2 years after being on set with Tom, delivering lines alongside him, he was delivering mail in London, having taken a job as a postman to pay his bills when his acting work started to dry up. Now, 30, this blessing of a man is a 6-figure business owner and globally recognized coach supporting millennials all around the planet to create lifestyle they desire. And Liam has found his passion and purpose in doing this and is on a mission to help others do the same. He entered coaching after he met Paul McKenna, who told him and I love this quote, bro, the amount of influence you have is directly proportionate to the amount of people you help. A message that Liam now wants to pass on to the rest of his generation in a bid to help shift their mindset. So we're going to talk crazy amounts about that today, bro. Liam continued to evolve despite surviving, terror attack, losing his dad to suicide, within the same year. Sorry to hear that, bro. And is now on a mission to make coaching as fashionable and mainstream as having a personal trainer, bro. Again, bro, just my blessings, my excitement, my gratitude for having you here with me today, bro. I'm so thankful, so thankful.
You know what, Eric? When I woke up this morning and I jumped on Instagram and I saw in your stories that you were on your way to Santorini, I thought, this man gets it. He gets it. I know that we're going to have a good podcast. And yeah, man, as I say, thank you for inviting me on. And you know what? The Resilient Minds podcast, Eric. I think we are two people that have been there, done that, and we can share massive amounts of value around what it means to have a resilient mind. And you know what, your viewers, your listeners, I have one goal here, and that is to just try and hand over as much value within this amount of time that I possibly can. And I know you're the person to facilitate that, hands down.
Bro, let's extract all the brilliance, man, because, it's so important to always, it's the quality of the questions that determine the quality of our results. And let's get some great questions out there so we can really pull out all that brilliance inside of your brain, man. But first things first, I know I really touched on some of the background and, being here, it's crazy. Like you said, this resiliency that we both, share. Even traveling to Santorini all the way from Australia, people are like, you're crazy. Why are you leaving? Like COVID, all this stuff. And I'm like, I don't, like that means nothing to me because it's all my mindset, all of that stuff, people, yeah, exactly. All people are like, covering themselves and, I'm just like, you know what, I'm blessed. Whatever happens will happen.
Yeah.
And
100%.
we have this common mindset, I think, of just persevering and pushing through no matter what everyone is telling us. But, in a Coles Notes version, bro, I know I shared some really key fundamental components, but, I always share with everybody through the Resilient Minds podcast of the experience of our life is our X factor, right? The experience of our life is our X factor in ourselves, in what we, our problems or our pains become our learnings, right? And they become eventually our opportunities so that we can triumph moving forward. Now, what is it through your experience that has really helped you to really persevere and push on to create this big, massive, intentional why that you now continuously cultivate in yourself and others?
You know what? When you asked me that question, Eric, and I love that question, and no one's ever asked me that before, right? No, people have asked me similar questions, but no one has ever asked me that question in that way. And when you asked me that question, there was one word that came by and just smacked me like a ton of bricks. And the word is composure. Composure is the thing that has allowed me to push through some really horrific things in my life and stay resilient and develop resilience to the point where I not only survive, but I can thrive. And I'm sure we're going to touch on these today throughout the podcast, but I've experienced some horrific things, as have most people on this planet, because it's the nature of humankind, it's the nature of experience, it's the nature of connecting with other people and having highs and having lows. And I feel like composure is without a doubt the number one trait that has allowed me to survive those things and then thrive through them. In terms of where that drive comes from, where that motivation comes from, it's a question that I'm still asking myself on a daily basis. And that's one thing that I always tell my community, and that I want to tell everybody that listens. I am not even close to being the finished article, mate. I am not even close to being the final developed version of myself, nor do I ever know if I will reach that stage. But as long as I'm still moving forward and I'm still growing and I'm still progressing and I'm still able to keep my composure during really difficult times, during really horrific circumstances, if I can keep that composure and still have my eye on where I'm going and where I'm heading, and move through the weeds and move through the woods and move through the thorns to get to the other side, then mate, I will continue to push forward on a daily basis through anything, as long as I've got that composure and that drive to do better than what I'm currently doing right now.
I love it. And I think composure, it really does that. I always share is about like that vision or that ideal within our heart that's ingrained within ourselves to really see something bigger than where we currently are. And being composed, focusing on seeing the results that you want to create or visualizing and implementing based off of that. So with that composure, how does that continuously evolve to contribute to the massive why, this intentional why of turning, coaching and personal development mindset into such a, mainstream tool like the training, like the personal training?
I tell you what, mate, that is, the connection there is so important, as you mentioned, like how does one contribute to the other? And I feel like I've learned that through experience. I've learned the power of composure and the power of coaching and mindset through experience. To touch on that, I'd love to tell you a story. This story, mate, this story for me is one of the most significant moments of my life. And the reason that it's so significant is because it proved to me that what I teach works. It proved that coaching, that mindset, that personal development, that the work that you do on yourself, and all of the things that I teach as a trainer of NLP and as a trainer of coaching, it proved to me on this one specific day in my life that it all works amazingly if you apply it. Now, in my industry, in the coaching industry, there are lots of people, and I'm sure you've come across this as well, Eric, and I can tell that you are absolutely not one of these people. There are a lot of people that don't walk their talk, right? Now, we've seen this, we've witnessed this, and I can't stand that. You know, I feel like if I'm going to teach something, I want to be able to use it, and I want to be able to love it, and I want it to be a big part of my life. And I use coaching on myself on a daily basis. Now, this story that I'm going to tell you, this story is one of the reasons as to why I use this stuff on a daily basis. It was June 3rd, 2017. I'll never forget that day, June 3rd, 2017. And me and my wife at the time, we lived in this tiny, tiny little apartment just at the foot of London Bridge, right smack bang in the middle of London. It was this tiny apartment, and it was right above a pub, a very, very busy London pub. And it was a really warm summer's evening, you know, and it was one of those evenings where there was just like, there was love in the air. There was love, there was laughter, there were people outside in the pub, they were drinking, they were laughing. It was a great environment, right? It was one of those nights where it was a great environment. And me and my wife were sitting at home, we've got all the windows open, and we had these like huge bay windows in this tiny little flat. It was amazing. I love that place. And we're sitting there and we're just watching television, and we're talking, and we're having dinner, and we're having good conversation. And outside, we heard what sounded like a fight, right? Like a scuffle, nothing serious, just maybe a couple of guys that are a little bit drunk. They got into an argument. There's a little bit of a fight, right? Which is quite unusual for that area. So anyway, me and my wife were being quite nosy. And what we did is we just leant out the window to see what was going on. And there was this little fight. The police turned up, and they just said, look, come on, lads, you go that way, you go that way. And that's it. Like that's the end of the fight. So because we're already looking out the window, we thought, you know, let's just watch the world go by. Let's just watch London go by, because then as soon as the fight ended, people were laughing again, people were drinking, people were having a good time. And it was a warm summer's evening. So we just watched the traffic go by, watched people have a good time. And it was amazing, right? It was just a really gorgeous summer's evening. And then out of nowhere, we heard screams, and only what could be described as, what would be a good word for it? Like ruckus is a good word for it, right? Ruckus. We just heard ruckus, screams, and then they started to get louder. And instantly I thought, oh, fuck, like that fight is back. And now it sounds like it's a lot worse than it was before. But there was a bit more of a light rumbling, and it got a bit louder and a bit louder. And it was so strange. It was almost like nothing I'd ever heard. And it was like the collective sound of hundreds of people, thousands of people, in fact, who used to sort of culminate at that part of London. It was like the collective sound of everyone being scared. And that is such a weird sound, mate. Like it's
Dude,
not.
I just got goosebumps.
It's like a sound that I could never really explain. It's like a collective fear. There's a rumble with a collective fear. There are hums, and there are screams, and there are glasses smashing, and there are tables going over, and there are people banging into each other, and there's people running. And then I see people running. People were running down streets, down alleyways. People started running and hiding behind cars. People were running down into like the London Underground. And this is all happening in a split second, right? So because this fight has just happened, my immediate thought is that the fight has started, but this guy's come back with 50 men, and this guy's come back with 50 men. And now all of a sudden there's this like huge battle going on because of how scared everybody was. And then as I'm just sort of looking down into the crowd, and I'm looking down into all of this ruckus and all of this fear, I see people getting stabbed, just one after the other, People getting stabbed in the back, people getting stabbed in the chest, people getting stabbed in the face. And it was impossible at that time to see like how many attackers there were. But there were multiple people with knives stabbing people. And that's where the fear was coming from. And this had all happened in a split second. And of course, at the time, I didn't know that what I was looking at was the 2017 London Bridge terror attacks, which were one of the bloodiest terror attacks in the whole of London and London's history. Many people died that night, and we were right above it. You know, this little pub is here, and we were the first floor above the pub. And we're watching this thing unfold like it's some sort of horrific movie. You know, it's like, wow. You don't quite know if it's real. You don't quite know what to do. You want to go and help, but at the same time, I feel protective over my wife and myself. I don't want to put us in danger. But then, of course, I see there's these helpless people like being attacked. There's fear. People are running. People are screaming. And these three men, and at the time, we didn't know it was three men because it's like the power of hindsight, right? But now we know there were three men. And what they had done is they had drove this van across London Bridge, and they were just running people over across the bridge. They crashed the van at the top of the bridge, exited the van, walked all the way down from the van, right down to where I lived in this pub, and they were just killing people along the way, just like mindlessly killing people. And I tell you what, mate, there was this one man, and I forever will love and respect the bravery of this one singular man who was down there in the street, and he had picked up this metal chair from one of the restaurants, and he was essentially trying to fight all three of these men with this metal chair, almost like a crazy lion tamer. He's just like fighting them off with this metal chair. And all the police officers were driving right past the scene because they were driving up to where the van crashed, because that's where they thought the attack happened. And they're driving up and driving up and driving up. And this one guy with the chair, he drops the chair, he runs out into the middle of the road, he flags down like one of the police cars, and he points to the direction of where the attackers are, because at this point they're still attacking, like mindlessly killing people. And this one police car like screeched around the corner, just went out of our line of sight, and then we just heard loads of gunshots. But the scary thing was, we didn't know who was shooting who. We didn't know where the gunshots were coming from. We just heard gunshots, and we've just seen a lot of people get killed. So then, in hindsight, you think, okay, London Bridge terror attack, that's where the attack was over. But I tell you what, mate, that is where the nightmare really happened, because all of a sudden then I slam the window shut. I go over to the other window. I'm about to slam that shut, and this one police officer shouts up and says, "You need to get out of your apartment because we think there's a bomb in the pub," right?
Holy fuck.
And this bomb had gone off in Manchester. A terror attack, a bomb had gone off in Manchester about 2 weeks earlier, and it was on everybody's minds. So I was thinking about that. And I tell you what, mate, like this pub we lived in just has this like paper thin floor. If a bomb goes off in that pub, it's bad news for me and it's bad news for my wife. So I'm like, shit, okay, we've got to get out. Then this other police officer shouts up and says, "Don't leave your apartment because people are getting killed down here. Like, you don't want to be out on the street." Police officer number one saying, "No, you've got to get out. We think there's a bomb in the pub." Police officer number two, "Don't go anywhere because if you come out here, you might get stabbed." So I swear to God, I felt like I was staring down the barrel of a gun for about 30 minutes, right? And I'm literally thinking, right, what's going to have the least amount of impact? Is it the bed? Is it the sofa? Is it the kitchen counter? I'm worried about my wife. I want to protect my wife. Until eventually, police officers, both of them just say, right, okay, you have to get out because we do think there's a bomb in the pub. So I open up the door to my apartment, and I'm like creeping through the hallway with my wife behind me, thinking that one of the attackers might have got into the apartment. I'm walking through the hallway. I'm creeping down the stairs. I walked out into the street, and there was just...
How are you feeling through all of this? Just so that I can gauge the feeling. Like, what's the feeling going through your body, and the feeling, the way that you're feeling, and the feeling that you're having, like from your wife, her feeling, because you're probably, feeling her at the same time as you're feeling yourself. So what's the feeling like when you're going through all this?
It's such a weird feeling, mate. It's such a strange feeling. It's almost like a combination of pure survival, right? Just blinders on, laser focus. I need to find a way out of this situation and protect my wife. And a combination of like real deep empathy as well. Just after having seen what I've seen and seeing these people getting killed who are just so clearly there for a good night, just so clearly there, young people as well, young people out having a drink after work. You know, the city is lively, the city is fun, to never live another day again due to the fucking mindset of some crazy people. And that it's like empathy and survival. At that time, it's like 95% survival and like 5% just empathy. And then after this all comes to an end, those things fucking swap around, which I'll tell you about. But yeah, mate, there's that strange feeling of survival, of empathy. And when we walked out onto the street, there was just people just laying dead in the street. There's one ambulance that had turned up with 2 people in it, and they were sitting inside their ambulance like shaking because they didn't know what to do. They didn't want to get out. They didn't know if they'd be attacked. And this one police officer just said, just run and don't stop running. So we ran all the way down Southwark Street, which is like a really, really long street, just all the way down to Blackfriars Bridge. And we ended up being in this group of about 1,000 people, and it was horrible, mate, horrible. Because I didn't know if someone else was just going to pull a knife out and start stabbing people.
Yeah. Because you're not trusting anybody, right? You're feeling like, oh shit, maybe if somebody in here is part of that, or
exactly.
Wow.
Yeah. You don't know. That's the thing. And like there are rumors going around. Oh, apparently there was another attack over in Westminster. Apparently there was another attack. Apparently there's like multiple attacks, and you don't know if you're about to be in one of those things. And very, very luckily, this news reporter came up to us and said, where do you live? And we said, look, we live right in the middle of the market where the attack happened. And he said, look, I report on this stuff all the time, and I can tell you right now, you're not going to be going home for a long time. And he let us sleep at his apartment, which was like very close to where we were, which was so amazing that he let us do that. And I tell you what, mate, the days and the weeks and the months after that, when I see my wife having panic attacks that are so bad that she can't breathe, and I've seen what I've seen, and I've seen people losing their life through whatever reason, right? Could you imagine how easy it would be for me to have adopted a mindset of hate, of blame, of fear, of anger? How easy. Most people would have said it would not only have been easy for me to have developed that mindset, it would have been understandable for me to have developed that mindset. And
especially the fact that, like, you know, thinking like even me right now, you know, like I'm just, you know, as you know, we're these masculine men that want to look after, you know, the people that we love, and your wife is fearful looking to you, and now she's having panic attacks, and like I can just you know, put myself, obviously I can't put myself in those shoes of yours, because I would have, you know, you can never know what you're gonna do until you're in those types of shoes. But like my sense is just feeling that sense of compassion, empathy, and wanting to just save her, probably, you know what I mean, in that moment, or like even after the moment when she's like waking up with panic attacks or fear, you know, just needing to like console and be there for her, right? Like, so I just have massive love for you, bro, because that's like that's an appreciation that I'm sure so many men, you know, need to be able to do in a profound and loving way, rather than in a hateful, you know, like I'm gonna go and figure this out or become, you know. So that is huge, right? Like that you know, be able to go through that and then still, you know, be there for your wife and you know, show up for others in the meantime.
Mate, that's exactly it. That's exactly it. Like I knew I hadn't been a coach for that long at that point. I had only been a coach for 7 months, right? I became a coach on January 1st, 2017. And I mean, that's when I became a professional coach, but I'd been sort of like studying coaching and personal development for years. But I had only been a coach, as it were, for about 7 months, like when I had that fateful day of meeting Paul McKenna and what he said to me. But I knew that the number one way I could save my wife and help my wife and save myself was to help us develop a mindset of compassion and empathy and understanding and love and freedom. I knew that's what I could have been like, fuck this, I'm going to go and hurt someone. I'm going to go and fucking protect my family. I'm going to hate these people for what they've done and their mindset and their fucking, you know, and everything that comes with that. But you know,
and start using everybody around it, like so anybody that would have been associated, or you know, this mentality of, you know, whether they were a different belief system or all of this, you know, you could have done all of that, but you chose not to. So what changed in your belief systems?
Well, you know what it was? It was holding on to the belief system that I already had and not allowing my current belief system to be altered or to be damaged. You know, I had a firm belief system. I've always had a firm belief system of understanding. The way that I explain it is, in my mind, is I will choose inclusion over exclusion every single fucking time. And I will without a doubt always choose expression over repression every single fucking time. And the way that I see those ideologies and those attacks and those what can only be described as crazy people giving fucking huge amounts of people a very, very bad name, right? Is that they are expressing an extreme version of repression. Because what they're saying is, you know, you don't think the way we think, you don't do what we do, you don't believe what we believe, in which case I'm going to hurt you, right? Which is an extreme form of repression, which is the exact opposite of what I believe. I believe in expression. I believe in everybody's right to express who they are and what they think and what they feel, as long as it's not at the detriment or the pain and suffering of other people. And I needed to hang on to that with dear life, mate. I needed to hang on to that and not let go of that thing. Because what I witnessed that day on June 3rd, 2017, what I witnessed that day, I could very easily have changed that mindset and started to have said, no, actually, I'm now going to hate and I'm going to be angry and I'm going to be frustrated and I'm going to be, you know, I'm going to get revenge. But instead, inclusion, expression, love, forgiveness, empathy, understanding, protection. I needed to gift this to myself and to my wife. And I'm very, very proud to say that she has told me on many occasions that I helped her massively throughout that whole thing and still do to this day. And it was one of the major experiences in my life where I thought, holy shit, coaching really, really works. Because I've seen it, I've witnessed it now, I've lived it.
Exactly.
That's why I proudly teach it. And that's what, obviously, what my business is. I proudly teach it because of that.
I love it. And, you know, this is a fascinating concept. So I'm always curious about conscious leadership and, you know, the withdrawal, you know, the not able to speak your truth, the repression, as you say. All of this contributes to a factor where I notice there then is later on people will pass on judgment, and that judgment has nothing to do with the opposite, with the person they're passing judgment on. It has all to do with repressing their truth, with holding it back. So that judgment is actually, normally the conscious will see those judgment pass through and ask themselves the question, how is this being related to my experience of life? How can I ask myself the question of where is this showing up in my own life? Whereas the unconscious will pass that on to the next person and make it the blame or the victim or, you know, the persecutor. And that is what I find fascinating. So when you said expression versus repression and the combination, the whole difference between the two versus the conscious and the unconscious, right? And the questions, we shared earlier about the quality of the questions and how it determines the quality of results. So share with me, you know, how now you utilize this in the process in how you contribute this type of, you know, inclusiveness versus exclusiveness in your business and able to pass that on? Because obviously, you know, it's contributed to your life, it's contributed to the life of your wife, it's been able to contribute to the people that you're able to support. How is that process given, you know, to anybody that's listening right now through your business, and how you can show up as the conscious leader yourself?
Absolutely, mate. Love that question. I love that question. And let's dive into this then. There's three elements to it, right? There are three elements to any point of refocusing, readjusting how you feel, right? I've got this thing that I always say within my community, and it's a firm belief that I have, and it's something that a lot of my work is based upon. And that work is based upon this equation. The equation is that your thoughts create your feelings. Your feelings create your actions, and your actions create your results. So when I get people coming to me saying, I want different results, right? Now, the results that they might be talking about might be in terms of like the relationships that they have, the business that they run, how they feel, how people react to them, the status that they have, any reason, right, that people would come to me as a coach and say, this, I want to change this about my life or about myself. That's what I consider to be a result. What they're saying is, I want a different result. Now, I know that in order to change the result of that person's life, that you need to go all the way back to the beginning of the equation and change your thoughts. That's the thing. People put too much time and effort and focus into trying to change their actions, and even trying to change their feelings. But those two things will not and cannot ever change really without having changed your thoughts. Your thoughts are the things that it all originates from. So your thoughts create your feelings create your actions create your results. The results we were getting after June 3rd, 2017, after the terror attack, the result was a result of fear. It was a result of anger. You know, it was a result of apprehension to go anywhere or to speak to anyone. It was a result of panic attacks. That was the result, right? So what I needed to do is I needed to go all the way back to the start of that equation and realize that now the attack's over. We're not sitting in that apartment anymore. People aren't getting stabbed around us. You know, we're not in immediate danger, but the after effect is still there. And the after effect only remains, not because of our feelings, not because of our actions. It remains because of our thoughts, right? It is the way it is. So the thoughts were the things that I needed to focus on when it came to changing my results and my wife's results. And this is a formula that I use on all of my clients. The three components of that are your imagination, i.e. the images in which you conjure up in your head, your internal dialogue, i.e. the voice you use to speak to yourself, be it conscious or unconscious. That happens. Everybody listening to this and everybody watching this, you talk to yourself. Don't worry, it doesn't make you crazy. It makes you human, right? Let's embrace it and change.
We all got it.
we all got it. Well, let's utilize it as a tool for good. And your physiology, what you do with your body, what you do with your physical machine. And due to something called biofeedback, what you do with your physiology and your body is very important because it has a direct effect on how you feel and how you think. So when you're feeling a certain way, you're feeling that way due to a combination of those three things. You're feeling how you're feeling due to what you're thinking about, i.e. what you're imagining, the words you're using and the tone of voice you're using to speak to yourself, and what you're doing with your body. So of course, what was the thing that both me immediately after and my wife were doing straight after? We're imagining the thing we've seen, right? We're imagining the death, we're imagining the pain, we're imagining the killing. We're speaking to ourselves. Our internal dialogue is saying, this is really bad. This is really scary. Is our home even safe anymore? Is anywhere safe anymore? I'm probably going to get attacked if I walk down London Bridge. I'm probably going to get attacked if I go to the shop. Fuck, this is happening. Fear. And it reinforces the fear. It reinforces the reality that you don't want. And naturally, what happens is your body reacts. You close in on yourself. You shut down. Your chin goes down. You adopt that defensive yet scared frame of body.
You create that character around yourself, right? Where you actually naturally, that circumstance just is attracted to you.
See, I love that, because it's like you're taking it to the next level, Eric. What you're describing there is identity, right? Which is absolutely true. You do that stuff enough time, it actually eventually develops a certain identity and a character, as you say. And that is when people fall into the trap of saying, I am an unconfident person, right? It doesn't fucking exist, right? There are people that find themselves in situations where they are either confident or unconfident, right? For anybody listening to this, if you see people around you and you think, yeah, but she's a really confident person, yeah, but he's really brave, look, he's really intelligent, those people just happen to find themselves in a situation where they're expressing these three things I'm talking about a lot more successfully. They're thinking about things that make them feel confident. Their internal dialogue is something that allows them to feel confident. They're boosting their own confidence, and their body posture is adopting that of confidence. It's the same with bravery. It's the same with forgiveness. It's the same with empathy. It's the same with any type of emotion. Emotions are not linked to people's identity. You cannot say, I am a confident person, right? Me and you, Eric, people would probably look at us and say, yeah, but they're really confident. I can fucking guarantee that there are situations that me and you can find ourselves in where we certainly don't feel confident. And there are other situations where we feel wild confident, right? It's just
we all have shortcomings and we got to own them, man. Like Gary Vee said something the other day, and I forget the exact verbatim, word for word, but it's like, own your shit. We all suck. Like something like that, right? Like, own your shit. We all suck at something, right? Like, it's okay. But it's owning it. It's owning those shortcomings that allow us to evolve to the next level, that allow us to give us the time and the essence and the energy to take a moment and say, listen, how can I ask myself a question that is going to make me experience? And you know this right now, like, I've been asking myself this question: why do I suck at relationships? It's been a constant thing in my life where I struggle with this ideology of a romantic relationship. I'm really great with like friends and family and like clients and business and all this stuff. But when the romance comes, for some reason, there's a block, there's a shortcoming that I have. So, really that has always been something that I have had a block with. And there's an opportunity, I think, for me to evolve to a next level of person, of relationship, of whatever you want to call it, because of that.
100%, mate. And this what we're diving into now can directly apply to that, because even though we're talking about it in this extreme circumstance off of the back of the terror attack needed to overcome that, the structure is the structure and the process is the process. Absolutely. So I'm witnessing my wife having these panic attacks. I know that I need to help her. I need to change my own mindset and keep that solid. So what needs to change? And it's directly related as well to your own block, Eric, when you say, look, there's this block I've got where it's like, there's this block of relationships, being able to find that loving relationship. I seem to struggle with that. It's something I'm not very good at. There are three things that are going to be contributing to that when you feel that way. And those three things are what you're imagining, what you're saying to yourself, and therefore then your body then follows suit. And then that then becomes a situation in which you find yourself maybe closing in on yourself or maybe being defensive. So we got to change those three things. That's the thing. That is the key for everybody listening to this. If this is the best way of thinking about it. If there is anything that you feel that you don't want to feel, right? That feeling might be jealousy, it might be fear, it might be anger, it might be depression, it might be anxiety. Don't ever let anyone give you a title. Don't let a fucking doctor, don't let anyone say to you, you are depressed. You are anxious. You are fearful, right? Because emotions, we are not our emotions. Our emotions are not our identity. They are not who we are. They are simply a part of who we are in our journey. And they can be changed. They can be changed, right? Now, I'll touch on this in a bit. I'm passionate about this subject because I lost my dad to suicide off the back of him being misprescribed a combination of antidepressants and sleeping pills that he never had any business being on those pills. because someone once said to him, this is you, right? This is you. This is who you are. In which case, have these fucking pills. Now, emotions don't require that, right? They can be changed. Your emotions are being created by the things that you're thinking about, i.e. the things you're imagining, your internal dialogue, and what you're doing with your body. Those three things are creating your emotions. They're creating your feelings on a daily basis, good and bad. And as we know, the things that we feel determine what our actions. They determine what we either do or we don't do. And that determines the results we get in life, the opportunities that are presented to ourselves, the people that we meet, the situations we find ourselves in. So we always want to be looking at changing those three things. Now, I'll give everybody a quick tip, because you might be listening and thinking, well, well, how do I change those three things? I'm able to get people to change those three things drastically through my NLP training, through my coaching training. I've done it a long time. I do it through sessions. I now teach other people how to be coaches, so I don't coach that much myself anymore. The first, if you want to be able to change the way you feel immediately, in the immediate moment, start with your body. Start with your body. And the reason for that is because of something called biofeedback. If you ask yourself, this is the formula. Step number one. Change your state. Exactly. Because what we're talking about here is state, isn't it? It's mood, it's emotion, it's feeling, it's state. The first step is to recognize how you're currently feeling. That's the first step. Stop and think, I am currently feeling angry and I don't want to be feeling angry. I'm currently feeling jealous and I don't want to be feeling jealous. I'm currently feeling fearful and I don't want to feel that. Recognize how you feel first. And it just, in that immediate moment, just accept that that's how you're feeling. Don't beat yourself up about it. Accept that you're a human being. There's a reason as to why you're feeling that way, but you've made the decision you don't want to feel that way anymore. Then the second step is make a firm decision. How do you want to feel, right? Okay, so I know I'm currently feeling scared, but actually I would really like to feel calm in this situation. That's how I would like to feel. That's where I'd get the most amount of value. That's where I'd be able to think straight. That's just how I want to feel. Then ask yourself, what does my body normally do when I'm feeling calm? When I'm feeling calm, think back on a few different times in your past. Now, I'm using calm as an example. Whatever positive emotion you want, think back at a time in your life where you did feel that way. What was your body doing? How did you sit? How did you stand? How did you walk? How did you breathe? How did you move? And adopt that body posture. And at first, you're going to feel like you're pretending. And that is absolutely fine. You should feel like you're pretending, because in the immediate moment, you are pretending. But that's not a problem.
It gets uncomfortable.
And it gets uncomfortable. Exactly.
But by the way, that's how you stretch.
And exactly, because we are elastic. We are elastic. We can stretch. It will feel uncomfortable, but do it. And then this thing called biofeedback kicks in, where you might be feeling really unconfident and you say, actually, I want to feel confident. How do I stand when I'm confident? How do I breathe? How do I walk? How do I move? How do I fucking run? How do I twist? How do I turn? What do my shoulders do? What does my chin do? What does my chest do? Adopt that. And biofeedback is where your body sends messages to your brain and basically says, hey, brain, fucking wake up. Did you not know we're feeling confident now? Didn't you get the memo? Didn't you get the message? We're now feeling confident, so quickly catch up. Then start asking yourself, what do I think about when I'm confident? What do I picture? What do I look at? What do I see in my mind's eye? What memory do I think of? What place do I think of? What person's face comes into my mind when I'm feeling confident? When I'm feeling confident, what do I say to myself? Because I can bet you right now, when you're feeling confident, you're not beating yourself up with your internal dialogue. That's a fucking fact, right? You're reinforcing the confidence. You're reminding yourself that you're good at this, that this is something that you're skilled at. This is something that you enjoy. This is a place that you like. That's a person that you like. And you reinforce the feeling through what you imagine, your internal dialogue and your body posture. So I knew that my wife's internal dialogue, her imagination and her body posture was creating the sense of fear and creating panic attacks. and I needed to fucking change that, right? I needed to help her change it. If I had jumped on the bandwagon of the fear and the anger and
You
the
guys would have
hate,
both.
exactly, mate, then we both would have just allowed each other to just spiral downwards.
Spiral.
And I needed to.
And how many times do you think that actually happens, where, like, you know, because we want to be there to support our loved one, instead of helping them rise, we actually are like, yeah, you know, we console and comfort them in a way that isn't conducive to the right way. So maybe you can touch on that, because that's something I think that might be really powerful for anybody listening, is like, how do those values show up, you know, in a way that you can really serve, you know, maybe your loved one, your beloved, your family, your friends, if they're in a city situation, but it's actually bringing you down, and you don't want to go down with them, but you want to bring them up, but they're very hesitant about that, because that's really important. I think sometimes, and myself included, I would walk the other way because I want to avoid that, right? Because I'm sensitive to that type of energy. So, you know, how do those values show up, Liam, you know, when there's struggles like that? And maybe you do that in your work. I'm certain that you do. You know, maybe you do that in the way that you serve your clients, and I'm certain that you do. But maybe for any of the listeners that are listening, maybe you can give them a couple tools that might be really appreciative for what's the possibility to move forward. Make sense?
That makes perfect sense. And you know what? The analogy that pops into my head, one of the many jobs that I had before I became a coach, right? And I had every job you could think about, mate. Like I was a barman, I was a junior stockbroker, I was a lifeguard at one point. I worked in various different shops. Like I had job after job after job after job before I became a coach. And one of those jobs was a lifeguard, right? I used to be a lifeguard in a swimming pool. And the analogy that pops into my head when you say that is, when you do your lifeguard training, they say that when someone's drowning, what you have to do is essentially the worst thing you can do when someone's drowning is try to save them, right? That sounds crazy. But the reason that that's the worst thing you can do if you're not trained is because if you swim up to someone who's drowning, right, and they're in that panic, and that panic has set into their mindset, and the only thing they want to do is survive, that could be your mum, your dad, your brother, your sister, or your best friend. And what that person will do is that person will try to climb on top of you to get to safety, right? Because that animal instinct of survival kicks in and they're not thinking straight. And then what's happened is then you're both in a bad situation, because then all of a sudden they're going to be pushing you under the water in order to try their best to just keep themselves above the water. You're going to drown. And then once you drown, they're going to drown anyway. So in order to save them, what you have to do as a lifeguard is you basically have to stay away from them and try to essentially get your like 2 fingers under their chin and then like swim away from them, right? So it's actually a very good analogy, because this is exactly what we need to do with those people in our life that you're describing, Eric. We want to help them, but the worst thing we could do is go all in, right? The worst thing we could do is just is like jump on top of them and smother them in this kind of like need to help them and want and desire to help them. Because all they're going to do is they're going to grab you and they're going to drag you down, and then you're both going to be in a bad situation.
Super powerful.
So what you need to do is you need to do the lifeguard analogy, and you need to help them from a distance at arm's length, right? And you need to be able to just give them little bits, but then the number one word that comes into that equation is ownership. They have to take ownership over the process. They have to be the one that changes. There's one absolute fact in the coaching world, and that is that no one will change until they are ready to change, right? No one will change. I could be the best coach on planet Earth, and I can't change someone that isn't willing to change and ready to change. They need to be willing and ready to change. I can facilitate it. I can help them at arm's length by dropping things into conversation. And what I mean by that is dropping in reframes. Now, this is the way that we help those people, Eric, right? We drop in reframes. And what I mean by that is when somebody is dragging themselves down, and life is really shit and everything's really bad and everyone fucking hates them and everything's really crap and stuff like that. Simple reframes are ways of reframing the situation that they present to you in order to try to see it from a different perspective. Now, if you directly said to someone, you know what, instead of seeing it the way you're seeing it, you should try to see it like this. That's confrontational. And the human being is going to say, no, thanks. Like, no, thank you. I don't want to know that.
Basically,
However,
fuck you.
Yep. No, thank you. Fuck off.
Yeah.
There's a part of the human brain that doesn't want to be fucking told what to do, right? So they'll be like, but you can do it very, very subtly with terms like, I wonder, you know what? I wonder how that situation is for that other person you're speaking about. I wonder, that's really interesting, isn't it? I wonder how they feel. They must be, you know what? There must be an element of that where they're actually really stressed as well. And I wonder, you know, the thoughts that are going through that person's head at the time are probably due to this that happened to them and this that happened to them. Little tiny subtle reframes to have that person thinking, yeah, I didn't think about that. Maybe you're right. And it's a way that it can be done non-confrontational. And I think for everyone watching this live, we'll wait for Eric to come back. This happens all the time with me and my business partner in Barley. My business partner Lewis, he lives in Barley, and there's something that we can call Barley WiFi. And Barley WiFi is where Wi-Fi always drops out just at this exact moment, and you can't tell whether or not someone's just deep in concentration or indeed frozen. But what will happen, Eric will jump back on this in a minute. We're still recording and we're still live, which is awesome. So for everybody watching this, what I was saying to Eric there are those small reframes that you can give to people who may be struggling. Now, if you have those people in your life that are struggling, you know, and you have those people in your life that you want to help, but they may indeed drag down your energy. They may indeed drag you down. You want to help them, but you don't want to be confrontational. You know, you want to help them, but you don't want to directly tell them what to do or tell them what to think, because as we've learned, that never works anyway. You know, within the realm of coaching, there's one thing that we always stress is that we never tell anybody what to do, right? We never tell anybody what to do. We don't tell anybody what to think. We don't tell people how to live their lives. We don't instruct. We don't teach. We barely give guidance. What we're doing is we're asking questions and we're planting seeds, okay? Asking questions and planting seeds. What do I mean by that? What I mean is we're asking questions for people to come to their own realizations. Now, let's say for an example, you have somebody in your life that is very down or very depressed or feeling anxious, and they're explaining to you the reasons as to why they're feeling that way. One way in which you can help them is by dropping in very subtle reframes of that situation. And so what I mean by that is seeing the situation through a different lens, or seeing the situation through a different frame, as we call it, essentially trying to gain a different perspective on the situation that they find themselves in, trying to gain a different perspective around the thing that they're thinking and the thing that they're feeling and the experience that they're having. But instead of directly saying, look, don't think about it like this, instead think about it like this, it's too confrontational. You can allow them to think about their situation in a different way, through a different perspective, by simply dropping it slightly into conversation, by bringing up the different perspective or the different viewpoint into conversation without directly saying to the other person, this is the way that you should think. So guys, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Now, I know that Eric is streaming this live on his personal page. So I think one of the best things that we can do is chat to you guys that are watching this live. So yeah, Susie says no one will change unless they are ready to change. Boom, so true. That's absolutely true. And yeah, Eric's back. Yes, my man. How's things?
Did you keep going?
Oh, mate, absolutely. Of
I,
course.
I love it. You're the best. Oh,
Me and your community, mate, we dived into like the intricate details of little reframes. Took a couple
oh,
of
dude, that was epic.
on the
Good
live,
old
mate.
Santorini Wi-Fi. This is amazing. I'm so happy you continued, bro. That's amazing. I
Oh,
love it.
mate, absolutely, of course. I jumped on the live as well. Susie said, no one will change unless you're ready to change. Boom, and that's absolutely true. For everybody watching
Dude,
this live,
amazing.
jumped into a couple of little techniques, which was cool, man.
Bro,
Santorini,
so you've given us such an amazing path to success, and I first of all, I just want to just really like appreciate you. Even this is I love it because even though I dropped out, you continued delivering value, so it's like we don't have to edit anything, which is amazing. It makes it real fun that way. But I want to really ask, you've given such a beautiful path of success, and why would you say so? There's people out there that fail.
That's a really good question. I would say a perspective that's incredibly easy to adopt, right? Now, my viewpoint on this is that it's the same reason as to why they say that it takes more muscles in the face to smile than it does to frown. Nature has literally made it easier for us to be negative, right? We know this. It's easier to complain, right? It's easier to say how bad things are, to bitch about the weather, to moan about your work, to complain about the people in your life. It's easier to do that, just stemming all the way back from that part of the brain that keeps us watchful and keeps us mindful and keeps us, our families protected against the wilderness and stuff that we needed to be protected of when we were living in caves. It just simply hasn't changed, which is why we have this collective communication of negativity, right? I've got a really, really good example of this, right? When I was on a 2-week Caribbean cruise with my wife. And I'm in paradise, right? I'm loving it. You can't get me down. I am in paradise. I'm having the best time. And every single time I got into an elevator on the cruise ship, every single time that elevator stopped at another floor, everyone in the elevator went, doesn't this take so long to get to every floor? And everyone looks at each other and goes, doesn't this elevator take so long? And I tell you what, bro, I fucking refuse. I refuse to partake in what I call the collective communication of negativity. That is how people communicate, because it's easier and it's going with the crowd and it's the thing that people do, right? That mindset is the reason why people fail. That is the mindset why people fail, because they allow themselves to partake.
Exactly. It's like this, it's that good old Steve Jobs saying, the people that are going to change the world are the crazy ones, the misfits.
Yeah, absolutely, right? Mate. We are the misfits, and I'm proud of it as well. Proud of it, my brother.
That's right, bro. Let's do this.
If you don't want to fail, if you want to succeed, refuse to partake in the collective communication of negativity, right? Even though it's easier and more comfortable to complain with the crowd, refuse, and you will battle failure.
Yeah. Liam, bro, I want you to, lay it down. Where can people find you? How can they get in contact with you if they want to know more about what you do, work with you, with your community, get into your community? Please lay it all down. I'll make sure I add the links to the show notes regardless, but I'd love for anybody that, wants to reach out to you to know how to do that.
Definitely, mate. Definitely. And I appreciate that as well. Well, first and foremost, for everybody listening to this podcast, definitely come over and listen to my podcast, which is the Coaching Masters podcast. Absolutely. It's awesome. Me and my business partner, we lay down as much value as we can every single week. And that is the Coaching Masters podcast. And also just go to thecoachingmasters.com. There's a load of cool content on there. There's lots of good videos, loads of good stuff. And if you want to follow me on Instagram, it's at liam.james.collins. And if you shoot me a voice note, I am very prone to shooting you a voice note back. Reach out to me, send me a message, and we'll always have a good conversation.
I love it, and I'll add all those links in the show notes if anybody's driving or doesn't have access or whatever in the moment. So, last question, brother, and
Cool.
this is one that I always love to ask everybody because I think it's super powerful. If you had 3 days left to live, what would you do?
I'd spend 3 days cuddling my wife, mate. I can tell you that of absolute certainty. You know what? I've been very adventurous throughout my life. I've traveled to a lot of places. I've done a lot of things, and I've been of the mindset that I want to just do everything and see everything and go everywhere. And I still feel that way. I really do still feel that way. There's a lot left for me to do. And a couple of months ago, me and my wife found out we're having our first baby, which I'm like super excited about, mate. And we have just recently found out as well that it's a little girl as well. So I'm going to have my
Congratulations, bro.
Thanks, bro.
All the best to you, man.
And you know what? It's almost, whether it's the fact that we got married recently, whether it's the fact that like we're having a baby now, it's just like, the immediate thing that popped into my head when you asked me that question, and no one's ever asked me that question before, is I would grab my wife, I would squeeze my wife, and I wouldn't let go for 3 days.
That's amazing. Appreciate this, dude. That's super powerful, bro. Thank you so much. And do you have any, first of all, I want to say again, thank you for coming on. It's been a blessing. Thanks for all the knowledge and wisdom you shared, bro. I know I got a ton out of it, and I know there's, whoever listened in live or is going to listen later, for years to come as we continue to thrive in our worlds. This will be a tremendous piece in the vault. So just want to say thank you to you, brother. And do you want to just add anything at the end of it? Do you have any last comments or concerns?
My last comments are directly to you, Eric. I think that you are quite possibly one of the kindest, most thoughtful people that I've ever met. I'm so glad that we've connected. And I think it is so obvious that your number one viewpoint is to add value to the lives of the people that are witnessing this video and watching this podcast. It's obvious that you've got a thirst for life. It's obvious that you care about yourself as you should and the people around you. And I want you to know that you are powerful and you should keep fucking going, mate. Keep doing what you're doing, because I swear to God, you are changing probably more lives than you could ever imagine, and you will continue to change more lives. And I want to see that happen, mate. And that is going to happen. And I'm so pleased to have connected with you on this part of the journey. And you know what? I can guarantee that there's going to be an interview part 2 between us. Definitely, mate. I reckon we should just carry on doing this and adding value.
I love it, bro. Thank you, man. Those are the kindest words, man. Thank you so much. It really means tremendous to me. It's so much. It's so important. And, coming from you, man, I really appreciate it, man. Coming from, from such a place from a soul level, I felt it, dude. So thank you again, man. You're a blessing, bro. And I look forward to doing part 2 at some point in the near future, my friend.
Absolutely, mate.